All right, Ohio political news coming to you live from somebody's basement. What I gotta say. All right, good to see everybody out there. Woo! The crowds, they're getting crazy. They're getting crazy. There's another crazy dude there.
Welcome.
Yeah.
Hey, everybody.
Now, these are suspicious-looking people. I don't know where they come from or how we get them on the air or anything like that. Yeah,
I haven't seen any suspicious characters.
Right? Oh, there's one. There's one. That's the suspicious one.
All right, this is a really suspicious one. Yeah. All right. So it's good to see everybody here tonight. And get the mug shot. The mug shot.
Mug shot.
Look at that. Ohio political news.
I'm one of the crew now. Everyone needs one of these.
You better believe it. All right. So we got Jennifer Gross with us here tonight, and we talk about what's going on in her district, and we got to talk about political stuff because that's what we do here. So we'll get to that in just a minute. So stick with us. Let's get right to it. How are you today? And you've been pretty busy. The whole house, not your private house there, but I'm talking about the state house has been really busy, right? You guys are
my gosh,
crazy, passing all these bills. No one's looking or anything. It's amazing.
We passed 31 bills on Wednesday. We started at 1:00. We did not leave. I didn't leave my office at the arrive till 2, and I was so wound up because the last bill was 56, which hopefully we'll get to.
Wow.
Which the last one was 56. We're waiting on the Senate, and I couldn't sleep, so I didn't go to bed until 4 a.m. and then I had a meeting at 8.
My God, that is crazy. Okay, so are you guys on vacation now, or
we are?
You are okay, and you come back what? Do you come back in December or January?
Not even sure. We think it'll be January, February, March, something like that.
Really? So it'd be a nice.
Yeah, you guys should. The next thing after you're done getting signatures for abolishing property tax, you ought to lower the legislative term to every other year for 6 months. That'll win me some friends and of my colleagues in the legislature, and then cut all our benefits. Yeah.
Well,
that gets. Can we vote on that now? I mean, because we're going to go.
You can start pressuring your colleague. You can start pressuring your legislator and say, "What do you guys do on year 2? And why do you need to be there? Because for every law you pass, we have 10 to 20 more rules that are made, and that increases red tape and all of that. And so you guys need to decrease what you're doing."
Yeah, unfortunately, Jennifer, we've tried to reach out to our state reps and senators, and they just ignore us. So that's why they're in the predicament they're in with the property taxes, because they ignored the average citizens.
I'm sorry that happens. I've had a couple people actually recently, because I've been without aides for quite a while, and by no fault of the speaker who actually pays for our aides. I don't know if you guys know that, but the speaker approves or disapproves anyone who we are allowed to have working for us. And I had an aide that lasted about 6 weeks, but he just couldn't make it. So I am not doing, for those who are writing my office, I apologize in advance, but we are struggling to keep up right now. And even the aide that's following me said, you have a very busy office, but I would just argue that's what we're supposed to be doing, working.
It's because a lot of people, like Brian was just saying, they try to get a hold of the state rep. It never happens, but I mean, what's it like there? And, fill us in a little bit. It's kind of a mystery for us.
That's a great question. First of all, the majority of us have one staffer, one. So a lot of people think that we have all this policy stuff. Like Congress has people in their home district, in their DC office, then they have a constituent aide, then they also have political aides, all that kind of stuff, all paid for by Congress, whereas in the Ohio legislature, if you're not a chair, and even if you are a chair, if you're a chair, then you can get what they call a CA, a constituent aide. But even then, my constituent aides are like one semester at a time. So by the time you teach them what to do, they're out of there, and maybe you have to get another one. And then the legislative aide is often right out of college, 21, 22. It's an entry level job. Now, when you're a chair, your LA or legislative aide, we call them LAs, they make a little bit more money. And then the longer they're in the House, they make more money. But my aides, I think around Columbus, a lot of people know that my aides work really, really hard. And so one of my previous aides, she got like a $30,000 raise when she left my office, because if you can handle juggling all the plates, not because it's working for me, I don't think I'm that difficult to work for. It's just that our office is so busy. If they can handle working in my office, they come to work and they work a lot and they work extra overtime. People in Columbus want my aid because they understand how the sausage is made, and if they've done well for me, I give them very strong recommendations. So I am looking for a new aide. If there's anybody out there, even someone who's more mature that lives around Columbus that can tolerate my politics, I would love to have them send in their resume to me.
And they got to be a Republican too, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely, because we've had cases in the past.
Kidding. Of course.
Oh, and we do vet them. Vet them. We've had people try to sneak in. I've had people write me, "Hey, I want to work in your office." Well, I can't have someone looking at my emails and screenshotting my stuff and then sabotaging my office. So we do have to do that. One young man was not given the opportunity to interview with me because the perception was that he's a rebel, and of course that's exactly the kind of person I want. But he wasn't even allowed to have an interview.
Looks like somebody already chatted so that they want the job.
Well,
they did. They just put up a chat to
send their resume. Tell them
to
to send
a
their
resume
in. They must absolutely have excellent communication, but also organizational skills, because we juggle. It's picture a clown with all those sticks juggling plates. That's my office. I cannot emphasize that enough. And I'm sure my aide that just resigned would be able to tell you it's crazy.
All right, so we got somebody who wants a job already. I think that was somebody from Moms for Liberty. Put that back up, Kent, would you, please?
That's actually,
cool.
I know who that is.
Hillary with Moms for Liberty. I think we had her on the podcast.
They have to live near Columbus, and I do not want someone who's going to commute an hour and a half, because that did not work last time.
That's right. That's the one thing you got to be in Columbus, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's go to some of the bills.
Thanks for letting me promote that.
Maybe there's she could get it with one of the state reps closer by. Hillary is in. I'm trying to think where we just had her on the podcast. We were talking to her. Is she? Cuyahoga County. That's right. She's in Cuyahoga County.
She has to move to Columbus.
Yeah, but you still, no matter who you're dealing with, you got to go to Columbus for that.
That's right.
All right, House Bill 12. Let's just talk about this for a minute. So this is something that you put together. You're the sponsor for it. It's the Jeff, Dave, and Angie Patient Right to Try Act. Yes. I know it's been sitting in committee a very long time. Is it ever going to get out of committee? Is it ever going to see the light of day? So what's up with it?
I have the votes. I have the votes to get it out. I could force it out of committee, but if I force it out of committee, then people won't vote on it on the floor, because the speaker, we're having discussions with the speaker. He and I are at an odds. He and my joint sponsor, we're at odds on how to move forward. And right now it's stuck. And the reason is because there are people, and mainly the main lobbyist of the Ohio Pharmacists Association does not want us to not allow, let me get this clear. The pharmacists want the ability to deny prescription, which is what they did during COVID, which is part of the purpose of this bill, is that if a physician writes a script, and only physicians, this doesn't cover PAs or nurse practitioners, physician extenders, this covers physicians. If a physician sees you and they touch you and they determine that you need ivermectin or budesonide, or they've determined they've tried other antibiotics or whatever it is that they've decided that you need, as long as it's not dangerous to you, and that's covered in the bill. If the pharmacist says this is a danger to the patient, all they have to do is document that. They don't dispense. But they want to be able to not dispense because they disagree with the purpose that the physician is writing the drug. That's not okay. And so we're really at a standstill. And again, I have the votes in health committee. I could force it out, but if I force it out, then anybody who, then what'll happen is the bill will be killed on the floor, because people will not go against. I've got to get. It's the speaker and I and my joint sponsor.
Okay, so people don't understand, but you can have all the votes you want, but the speaker still has to bring you to the floor.
Right.
The speaker still has to say, yeah, we want to vote on this, and it sounds like Matt Huffman doesn't want to vote on it. But let me just let people know what House Bill 12 is about. It's a vital step forward in patient rights, expanding access to FDA-approved drugs, including off-label uses. And it's the Jeff, Dave, and Angie Patient Right to Try Act. And basically, what you're saying, what this bill is all about is when you use off-label drug use, but it's already FDA approved.
Yes.
So we can go to COVID because it's the perfect example. Hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, they were already FDA approved.
That's right. That's
but not for COVID. Right. So it would be an off-label use. And that would have made it illegal.
And Joe, we give 20 to 60% of all medications prescribed in the United States are prescribed off-label. I love to give the example of amoxicillin. People are like, what? Yes, high-dose amoxicillin, 80 to 90 milligrams per kilogram, is considered an off-label prescribing of amoxicillin because the standard is a lower per milligram per kilogram. And it's the same gabapentin. We give it for herpetic neuropathy. So if you get shingles and you have nerve pain, we give gabapentin for that. Well, it's actually a seizure medication. And so we give it for diabetic neuropathy too, and it isn't indicated for those things. Part of the reason that drugs aren't indicated for certain drugs is because pharma knows it costs money to do the research to get the indication. So to get that indication, they have to go back and do more research, but they already got the money from the drug. Why would they go back? We can use them off labels. I say we because I'm a nurse practitioner. We can use these medications off label. And the challenge is that I already have the medical board at neutral on this. They're supporting, this also covers physician free speech. They don't like, even if they don't like ivermectin, they should be able to speak out against it. But the ones who do should be able to prescribe it and not be harmed because they are. We have a physician who lost his job and lost his license in Ohio because he was treating something called Lyme disease. And it was chronic Lyme. I don't know how I feel about that particular diagnosis today, but I will tell you that a physician who hasn't harmed a patient should not lose their license. And so, I think it's.
But all of it has to do. Some of it also has to do with this old-fashioned money.
Correct.
And that's where I think we got to get this
all of it does.
Yeah, because
follow
with
the money.
What I was looking at. You know what a dose of hydroxychloroquine costs? 50 cents.
Yes.
And a dose of the it's a really hard word for
ivermectin?
Remdesivir.
Remdesivir.
3,200 a dose.
Yes.
And so it just so happens that remdesivir, that's what Big Pharma said you could use for COVID, but you couldn't touch hydroxychloroquine. And when you look at,
It's deeper than that. It's also the PBMs and the requirements. So they made deals with people. This is the standard of care, quote unquote. There was no standard. It was a disease that people weren't familiar with. And then they all get money and there's kickbacks, and PBMs are really an issue with this. And I know I'm picking fights with pharma, but I have my experience in those areas. I'm not anti-new novel treatments and medications for disease, but the research has to be legitimate, and obviously pharma is biased toward their research, and rightly so, because it costs a lot of money, but we can't harm people in the process. I do want to get back to 12 though, and Joe, I do want you to know I have given an email to the chief of staff. This is hot off the press. I've given them a list of medications that if they don't feel comfortable doing everything carte blanche, if they would give 6 medications, if those medications could be prescribed by physicians without fear of retribution and required to be dispensed by pharmacists, and 3 of those medications are ivermectin, budesonide, and hydroxychloroquine. So if we can get those drugs prescribed as needed, and we know that there's a lot of new data coming out about ivermectin and fenbendazole and all those things from Dr. Peter McCullough and others, we can really open up an opportunity for patients to have free, not free treatment, of course, for healthcare, but I mean, have that relationship restored and partially restored between them and their provider. And that's really what this bill is all about, restoring that relationship between you and your physician. I mean, the damage done to a physician and their relationship with their patients. I mean, people who love their actual patients. The damage done during COVID has not been repaired, and this bill would help partially restore that relationship. So
yeah, and you know the bill's name too, Jeff, Dave, and Angie. I mean, all three of them died.
That's right. Jeff,
and they could be living. They might be living if they could have got hydroxychloroquine.
In Jeff's case, the nurses gave the court ordered the nurses to give ivermectin to Jeff. He began to get better, but even then, behind the scenes, the nurses that were actually in the facility, somewhere I know someone who has a text of this, they made fun of the other nurse who gave it, and then they made one of the agency nurses actually give the medication because no one would do it, and they were making fun of the wife and Jeff and all of that. It was just a really sad thing. And then the courts, one of the local justices removed the forced administration of ivermectin, and then Jeff died. And my friend Julie, they were both in my district, and so that's why Jeff's on the bill.
Yeah, that's a really sad story there. Hey, I'm going to switch gears here to go to voting, and I'll get the other guys. I'll get Brian and Jonathan talking on this too. But are you familiar with the Senate Bill 293? It's to safeguard integrity for the elections, and what it's doing is it's getting rid of the 4-day grace period that we have in effect with our elections now, which I think is ridiculous. So the way it is in Ohio now is that if a ballot arrives 4 days after election, it still gets counted. This bill, Senate Bill 293, says, forget it. If your mail-in ballot doesn't arrive on election day or before, it ain't being counted. And I think this is fantastic because we know with mail-in ballots, especially with mail-in ballots, that's where all the cheating takes place. It's so easy to cheat with a mail-in ballot, and it's so hard to do it in person. And I've heard the clawback on this saying, well, you can't trust the post office all the time to get it there. Well, then don't mail it, right? Just go in person, pull the lever, or whatever you have to do. But yeah, so that sounds like a pretty good bill. Let me get these other guys in here. Wait, Brian, how you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. Yeah, as far as the election is, you do have a responsibility as a citizen to get your vote in on time, and I agree completely. If you don't get it in, by on election day, it's over, and I don't see what's so difficult about that. I'm all about also before you're even registered to vote, you got to prove that you're a citizen.
Correct. We did have an amendment on that bill to require ID to send in an absentee ballot. We don't have that yet, and that amendment unfortunately was not accepted. And I mean, there are just some things that seem so common sense and so obvious, and it's.
Yeah, I was talking to Marcel Stribich about that, Joe, and. Last week, and that's the one thing that he will be, pushing for in his race for the Secretary of State's office is that rather than automatically, registering someone and then having the Secretary of State, somewhere down the road, prove that the individual is a American citizen. I say before they even get on the list, they should prove that.
That's right. Yeah. Marcel's got it going on. He knows our election integrity, lack thereof, all the issues that we have in Ohio. He's just amazing that he can keep it all straight, and he's gonna do a great job.
Yeah, Marcel is. I like Marcel a lot. I've learned a lot about election integrity. Hey, two other bills along the lines with election integrity. And then give it over to Jonathan. But there's House Bill 586, and this is this is Beth Lear and Adam Bird threw this one together, and what they're saying is that they don't want any of the ballot request letters to be going out, and they said it's too costly and too expensive. So
I
what
agree.
this they mail out, so we're mailing out 8 million of these to people to say
Yes.
to go and vote through the mail, which I
right.
think we shouldn't be doing in the first place. I mean,
right.
it should only be in an emergency. You know,
That's right.
you broke both legs and you can't get to the voting ballot.
Right.
You know,
Right.
well, then maybe you should do it through mail or something. But we're sending out, everybody. We're paying for all of that to invite them to, hey, vote early, vote through the mail, and that's to me that's again the biggest issue with voting integrity is when you get to the whole mail-in. So that's House Bill 586.
Yeah,
and then
remember that. I mean, like we send those out, and they go to how many people? I mean, like that's every voter, I would imagine.
Yeah, right. Goes to every voter.
11.9
that's a lot of money.
Iowans.
That's a lot of money.
It is a lot of money, and don't you think there is an element of responsibility for the voter to understand that if they know they're not going to vote, to request an absentee ballot? Why would we send them? Some would argue, well, we need to tell them, it reminds them it's an election, all of that. But I would say engaged voters need to be engaged. They need to know there's an election coming up, and then they request on their own.
Yeah, you got to take some responsibility for that.
Exactly.
And one other bill here, House Bill 577, which is still in committee. All these are in committee, so I don't know if they're ever going to get anywhere. But this one is Ron Ferguson, and Ron Ferguson is saying that you got to show a photo ID if you vote by mail.
Yes.
Because you got to show a photo ID if you're in person.
Yes.
Why would the standard be if you go in person, you have to show an ID, but if you do it through the mail, which is so easy to cheat,
Correct.
you don't even have to show ID, just a fictitious.
We also, I have a bill that's being worked on right now with Ohio for Truth, and it's residency verification. It's crazy how we double back. We check to be sure the residency is verified, but we never really did. And so we're checking with false data to make sure. I mean, it's like, wow, we don't have a sure identification confirmation, and people can vote for 4 years before they fall off the voter rolls, if they gave a wrong social security number, all of these types of things. So we definitely have some areas that we can do better with election integrity.
All right, let me send it over to Jonathan here tonight. Hey, Jonathan, how you doing? So
good. The first thing, I should go and get my Marcel Sturbridge for Secretary of State sign. I forgot to prop that up behind me as a little plug. I completely agree. We have major issues with our elections, and I watched closely what was happening with Representative Ferguson. I was all for it, and I was frustrated once again with Speaker Huffman, who, it's my understanding, didn't recognize Representative Ferguson. So Ferguson is there on the floor, basically raising his hand, saying, hey, I want to propose something, and was not recognized. It's my understanding that that just effectively
it was very
silenced.
awkward for all of us.
Yeah,
it was very awkward because he kept standing and he was not recognized.
what was he trying to be recognized for?
He had an amendment for this bill that would have required ID. And we have a cultural thing where in caucus, if we did not address the amendment in caucus or speak to the bill sponsors prior to offering amendments, that we, shall we say, I guess, I mean, the rule is will be acknowledged on the floor. So I can't speak for the speaker. But I would say that he stood, and I think it probably would have been very good to acknowledge him. But again, I don't know why the speaker did not recognize him, but it was very awkward for all of us. And, I think at times like that, I wonder if those of us who are rebels, we all ought to stand and say, point of order, or we all ought to stand up and,
But it's tough. I got to tell you something. It's tough when you're in an environment like that, and the speaker, he's kind of got the power, and he's got the hammer. And all that.
He does, yeah.
Is this House Bill 577 or something else? Is this the one I was talking about where you want photo ID for ballots, or was this something else?
It was photo ID for ballots.
Okay,
yes,
that's amazing. So
ballots.
they would not recognize him or bring him to the floor.
It was photo ID for ballots. I hadn't planned on making this comment, but I do want to interject a really fundamental, very important comment, and that relates to what we're talking about here. That feeling, and I've been there. I've been, as an elected representative of my county Republican Party, I've been in the position of going head to head and sort of locking horns with the chair of our committee. And there's a sort of a power struggle that takes place. And Joe's not wrong. When you get into that environment, it can be tense, it can be very difficult. But I want to encourage everybody, and I think Rep. Gross probably gets this more than pretty much anybody else in the state of Ohio. We're equal. As soon as you start rethinking and stop thinking about that person as a leader, quote unquote, they are your equal in any of those sorts of environments. They've been given the gavel in order to try and lead the meeting, but we've ceded too much ground. We give too much power and authority to some of the wrong people, and they abuse it, thinking that they're somehow above the rest of us. These are representatives. Representative Gross, when she comes on this show, her approach and her attitude is exactly spot on, and we all need to think in that way.
Thank you,
we
Jonathan.
are Ohioans who are collaborating together to try and make it a better state. These people who are like, you can only talk when I say, or they abuse their power, and that destroys America. So,
and I would argue too, Jonathan, to your point, we all represent only 120,000 people, but all of us were elected to be there and should be allowed to speak. Again, I can't speak for the speaker. It was a very long night. It was a very tense night, I think, in order to get what he was thinking and why. But I think when I talked to someone on leadership, he said, Jen, we didn't discuss this in caucus. And therefore, because we didn't talk about it in caucus, he doesn't have to be recognized. I would argue that because it's a Republican, he should have been recognized. And it was a very awkward moment for the Republican caucus, because it could be any of us that could happen to at any given time. So it could be me. And it's very awkward.
He does have to, in respect to the chairman and all that, in any kind of a meeting, they have their own rules and stuff, and you have to abide by it. And things like that. So
but at a certain point, you've got to stand up to that kind of power. And I like Rep. Gross's objective of trying to build some caucus and build some people with some spine, courage, and wherewithal to stand up against that and call point of order. To understand, you can't see it right now, but I actually have 5 copies of Robert's Rules of Order in my office. Great. I can't claim to be expert, but I do intend to become as proficient as possible. That's the governing rules that regulate most of those types of meetings. And
Jonathan, we have our own rules too. On the very first day of the very first session of the first year in a General Assembly, we vote on our own rules. And so one of our rules is that everyone will be recognized, because with the previous speaker, Stevens, we were not acknowledged. There were numerous times that we were not acknowledged. And so in the rules, we put in there that our members must be recognized. Again, I may have missed what was going on. All I remember is the awkward silence. Just to give an example, like, were any of you guys the last one not picked for soccer or kickball or what? I mean, it was just a very awkward moment. And
I still have nightmares from that.
Yeah.
Not being picked. I would think, pick me. I'm here.
Hey, but
I
wait,
believe
so-
it will pass. Wait a minute. Let's see what this
I
says.
just
I
didn't
believe it
think
will
he was gonna
pass
recognize them,
3 or
so.
4 to 1. Problem number 1: if it takes away any local control. Number 2: we must now look at Columbus for local funding. 3: what the heck?
Yeah. Okay. So
all right,
this
let's
is really-
get on to the
Russ-
subject
Russ
here. I
is
want to
one
get
of
on to
my-
another subject here real quick.
Russ is one of my.
Wait,
Let's
did
talk-
we move too
Writing.
far away from the?
Yeah, but I
from
got to move on here.
HB12?
I got to move
Okay.
on because we got
Darn.
to keep moving. I don't. We got to keep on some kind of a topic here. All right, let's talk about. How about this reading proficiency with schools? Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Okay, so here's what I found. This just came out, and a decade ago, Ohio legislators, state legislators, enacted a mandatory third grade reading policy. Okay, that was like 10, 12 years ago. Third graders who do not read proficiently are 4 times more likely to drop out of high school. So the key was third grade. You had to reach this proficiency at third grade. All right, but in face of a lot of criticism, state lawmakers gutted the system, gutted the whole requirement 2 years ago. Okay, so now, even if you have reading deficiencies, they just push you along. So let me give you some examples here. 98% of third graders are pushed on to grade 4, 98%, even though statewide only 61% are proficient readers. Wow. In Garfield Heights, here in Cuyahoga County, Garfield Heights, Maple Heights, 99% of third graders were pushed on, just about everybody. But only 39% could read proficiently. And in Cleveland, 86% moved on, but only 33% could read proficiently. I just want to get a thought or two on that, if that's a discussion.
Well, I will say that's why I believe that parents should have educational choice and that we need to push for ESAs because parents need the opportunity to be able to be sure that their children are getting the best education that they feel they can provide for them. And one of those means that the parents do the research and they go, these schools are reading proficiency is this at this school, and schools that aren't performing then should, quite frankly, go out of business. And so I think that what we'll see is market correction, and that's why I am opposed to pushing all private schools to do the exact same thing that everybody else does, because parents will decide by where they spend their money for their children's education, whether they're successful or not. So failing schools will go out of business. And, now reading proficiency, I think that children ought to be able to read. And so, as you know, we're changing remember we did the Hooked on Phonics, and then we went away from that, and now we're back to phonics. And I think that what they learned, they tried a new reading program all over the country, and now I believe we're returning back to phonics, sounding words out and doing things like that. So
well, let's hope so. All right, let me ask Brian, because I know you're big on the whole school thing, Brian, so this is probably right up your alley. What is your thoughts?
Well, remember Jennifer Gross, not Jennifer, what was her name? Laverne Gore said to us a couple weeks ago, where she was running for the mayor's spot. She said 2/3 of the Cleveland public school children are functionally illiterate. Wow. And why would we continue with the current public school funding if we're producing that kind of results? I know they went away from phonics and they went into sight words. Yes. And then now they're saying, well, gee, maybe that wasn't very good. Well, was that on purpose? Was this a dumbing down of the kids? If they knew that it wasn't working, why didn't they stop it immediately? Why did they continue? And as far as somebody was saying that you're going to lose local control on the school funding, I don't think we've got local control at all. People are voting for these school levies just based on sheer emotion. They're not. They don't know anything about the proficiency scores of the schools. And also, I also believe that the state has gotten away from the 80 to 90 is a B, 90 to 100 is an A. They've got this cockamamie 5-star grading system that doesn't mean anything. And I think what they're doing is they're confusing it. and they're doing that on purpose. So I'm becoming a believer that schools should compete for the children, and just because you live in a particular school district, that doesn't mean that you should have to attend that school district. Now, Commissioner Pletchik and I were speaking to a group in Mayfield Heights this past week, and we mentioned that, and somebody raised his hand in the audience. He says, "You can't tell people, in Mayfield Heights or in this area that because they don't want kids coming from one district into their district." And I said, "Well, what's the end game? As a society, we cannot have children, 2/3 of them, that can't read or write.
That's right.
Society will not be sustained with that, and that's not fair to those children. So I think it's incumbent that we've got to really look at the whole public school funding. And
Well, and Brian,
I'm starting to
let's-
believe homeschooling may be the answer.
And let's remember, homeschoolers want nothing to do with the essays. They want nothing to do with government money. And sometimes I think they're the smartest ones ever, because they're like, get the gut, leave us alone. Just let us do what we want to do and leave us alone. And that's perfect. But let's also remember that over 70% of all Republicans and over 60% of all Democrats want educational choice. And because it is a majority, super majority of both Democrats and Republicans, that is the place we must go. And I would argue one of the best ed choice systems is Arizona. And then also we need to decrease, regulatory burden on, well, you can only have this textbook and you can only have that costs money. And we need to ease up on that. And I like the ESAs where our non-public, non-charter, we have tax credits where you can donate up to $750 per person and get a tax credit in Ohio on your property tax. Certainly if you don't pay $750, you're not going to get $750 back. But if you're paying $1,500, a family of two, a couple of two filing jointly, you can get dollar for dollar $1,500 back if you give a scholarship money to one of the schools on the list that the state provides. So that's a really great thing. We have Community Montessori and we have Mars Hill Academy and all these down here in Southwest Ohio where people can donate. And now's the time, November, December, and then you get dollar for dollar back in April when you file your taxes. That helps parents who need a little extra bump in cash and scholarships. The schools can offer a little bit more money for scholarships. So,
yeah, and people are telling us so that they believe that the schools really define the community. And I'm saying, well, you certainly can write a check if you feel that your local school it defines your community, and you want to make sure you're supporting your school. Write a check. There's nobody's saying that you can't write a check. I'm just saying, don't make me pay for it. Where's
Ryan?
It say that I've got to pay for the education of somebody else's child?
It's that real estate thing. We have grade A schools. And so I would argue that the majority of voters vote yes on school levies because they're protecting their property taxes. So it's really fascinating because, it's in one, I will tell you, over 80, I don't know what our numbers are exactly, 85 to 90% of every levy that we just had in November passed.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So
They
when
all
the levies
passed.
passed,
They all passed.
We're
all the
aware
levies.
of that, and we're telling people if they continue to pass these levies and property taxes, they're funding their own demise.
right, but then they come to us and say, you're the problem. You legislators
do something
are
about
the ones
property
that need to
taxes. I
fix
got
this, even though we keep voting our property taxes up.
Right.
Like, ugh.
Like 92% of the renewals passed. Like almost every
Yeah,
single
but that's-
library
we-
levy
yeah.
passed.
We've
These-
talked about
Renewals
that.
they changed
there's
the
a
renewals
disconnect.
to continuous.
Yeah. Well, there's a disconnect between understanding the implications of passing those and that sort of feel-good moment of continuing to pass those things and recognizing that has a direct impact on property taxes. As insane as it sounds to say that, I think a lot of people don't realize there's a correlation between the two. So two things I'm going to interject. One is that earlier, while talking about House Bill 12, I had some direct communication with Stephanie Stock from Ohio Advocates for Medical Freedom, and I have her authorization to read a statement on behalf of Ohio Advocates for Medical Freedom, because that's what we can do here on this independent news channel. We can throw the punches. And on behalf of Ohio Advocates for Medical Freedom, Stephanie Stock writes the following. Ohioans wanted House Bill 73, and Steve and Matt Huffman destroyed it in the Senate. We brought it back as House Bill 12 this year. That's my added comment. And we have the votes in the House Health Committee and on the floor. The only man standing in the way is House Speaker Matt Huffman. OAMF is calling on all Ohioans who care about medical free speech and maintaining access to life-saving drug prescriptions by their doctor without obstruction from pharmaceuticals to tell Huffman to allow the vote on House Bill 12. That's a direct statement from Stephanie Stock, Ohio Advocates for Medical Freedom. She's been a guest on this program. Go find Stephanie Stock and Ohio Advocates for Medical Freedom. Follow her on social media and track this thing. Ohioans, we need you to get loud now. Now is your chance to turn things up, send emails, make phone calls, and let's turn the heat up on this thing. Now, on schools, just as a representative example, because I guessed it would make a good one, I pulled up Euclid Schools in Cuyahoga County. Euclid Schools is reporting an overall 35.2% proficiency for their entire school district. The most recent financials are $25,356 per pupil. The total expense is in the millions and millions of dollars. When you're talking about literacy, I happen to be looking right now at Ohio Department of Education, and I see 33.4% English language grasp of English language, ESL. We have 33%, 35% overall proficiency in this district, spending $25,000 per kid. And I can tell you, if you go and visit Euclid, what they've done, one of the many things that they've done that's completely backward and breaking the community, intelligence, and the next generation of children and driving people into homelessness, they just built this massive monstrosity high school that is giant, that they can't afford. Joe has shown videos of others like Cleveland Heights and maybe even Euclid. I forget which one it was.
It was
lost
Euclid.
track now.
It was Euclid.
These crazy,
it's massive.
giant, massive high schools. They don't need them. What they need is actual education. That's not happening in this building. At that price point, at $25,000 per pupil, you should be graduating PhDs in physics, for heaven's sakes. It's done all over the world, except we can't seem to figure out the formula to get it done here in Ohio. That's frustrating and really disappointing.
Yeah, that Euclid school system, it's massive. It's like you would need RTA to get from one end to the other. It's just so big.
Wow.
And Brunswick. I was by Brunswick just recently, too. And a lot of tax dollars, a lot of property tax money being spent in Brunswick. They got a nice, big, beautiful school that they're building out there. Massive. These schools are huge. They're too big.
I have a question,
look up Brunswick.
guys. On the property tax, I'm getting several trustees, one of mine, but also one that was not mine, came to me about a month ago. And how do you answer this question? If property tax is abolished, or when it is, because I do believe it passes. When property tax is abolished, the question is then, doesn't the power then go to the state? Brian, I think this one's for you, probably all three of you. But how, because it's my trustees who are arguably one of, some of the best. I have the best mayor, of course, in the state. Unfortunately, he's retiring and moving on. But I have some really great trustees, and I think that it's wise to listen to what they have to say. And that is, the power then goes to the state to make the determination as to where the money goes. Remember, right now, the more affluent communities pay more tax to pay for the less affluent communities. So the richer suburbs are paying more in property tax to kind of even out the playing field. how is that going to look? And what are you guys proposing? Because it actually, what my two trustees are like, this gives more power to Columbus.
Yeah, okay, Brian, we'll throw that to you.
Okay.
Not
Number
that you
one,
haven't answered it before.
Knowing that I support I voted on every property tax reform, and I support abolishing the tax. So it's a hard place to be.
Yeah, I appreciate that, but the comments that I'm making these days, it's more than just a dollar and cent issue, as far as I'm concerned. When you become a representative or senator, you take an oath to defend the Constitution, U.S. Constitution, and the Ohio Constitution. Article 1 of the Ohio Constitution talks about protection of property and making sure that the people are happy. The other is that Article 6, Section 2 of the Ohio Constitution absolutely says that the state is responsible for the funding of the schools. The DeRolf case in the 70s, where the Ohio Supreme Court said that it is unconstitutional to use the property taxes. Well, we're told now that the legislators are saying we changed the school funding, and now that makes it constitutional. There's no question about it. Well, there is a question about it, because I don't remember the Supreme Court ever ruling whether it is the new school funding is constitutional or not. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that is not the role of the legislators to determine whether or not the current school funding is constitutional. Unless it's run by the Supreme Court,
Correct.
No one can make that statement. The other question is, when you talk about local control, I've been to so many school board meetings, and you get maybe 3 minutes. Nobody will answer a question for you, and they just ignore you. So, and then we've tried to put conservatives, quote unquote, on school boards, and all of a sudden these quote conservatives are bringing in the probably the most liberal administrators, CFOs, and that sort of thing that I've ever seen. So I'm not impressed with the local control. Now, again, as I said before, if people feel that the school is the foundation of their community, then God bless them. Write the check for your school to keep that school on top. Just don't make your neighbor, if your neighbor doesn't feel that way. I'm not for socialism, and that's what you're doing. If you're saying a redistribution of wealth, where you're saying making the rich pay, that is coveting, and that is not a biblical principle. Everybody should be paying their fair share. The state has the money. It's just that what they have done, they moved it around, like the local government funds. They were collecting sales tax and income tax money, but what they did was they've kept more and more of the money for the state, and they have not sent as much back to the local communities.
Right.
As far as the I have had this debate with the my township administrator. He said, "Well, Brian, how am I going to pay for police and fire?" I said, "I'm not an anarchist. I will pay for reasonable government services. You send me a bill, whatever that bill is, but don't tie it to my house." Home ownership, and I don't know why legislators don't understand this, that is the foundation of our freedom and liberty. Without home ownership, what are we but serfs to the government?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
You're talking about 90-year-old women that are losing their house because they can't afford the property taxes. And we've got senators that say if you can't pay your property taxes, sell your house and move into an apartment.
That's right. I had a 285-year-old.
Hang on one second here. I just want to. There were some really good comments. I want to just knock them out real fast. 1, 2, 3, so that we get some of the people in the chats, and then I'm going to go to Jonathan, and then we might have to wrap it up. But Kent, like
come back again in December.
Bridget Novak had a few of these. Put a few up real quick. Let's just.
Hi, Bridget.
Okay, so you know her. All right, great.
Yeah, I do.
Let's see.
At least I know her on social media mostly.
Oh, okay. Here is a question. Real quick, just a real fast answer. We'll go through a few of these. But on voting for levies, she is saying, why can't it be higher than 50%? And I think that makes sense only because if you pass a levy, you got it passed for the next 10, 20, 30 years, or 5, 10, whatever it is. It's a long time, and they keep hitting you again and again and again. So if you say no, they just put it right back on. So it seems to me to even out the playing field a little bit. Why don't you say, hey, if you're going to pass a levy, you got to do it by 60% or something?
Well, first of all, if it's constitutional, it's a simple majority. So remember that we tried to increase that percentage in the Constitution in August of, was it last year or the year before? And we failed because we have a 50+1. We have one of the easiest to change constitutions in the nation. And I would argue that standard needs to be increased. The challenge now is that we've codified abortion, and we don't need to talk about, I'm sure, abortion in this podcast today. But the pro-life community doesn't want to increase that because then we'll never reverse our constitutional Article 1, Section 22. When it comes to local elections, we've discussed that. And I think there is some leeway there to change local percentages, and we have tossed that around. I would be remiss, and I'm not an attorney, to say for sure, but I think it is something that we could look at. Now, 75%, Bridget, that's not going to happen. It's too high of a standard. But I think even if we raised it to 60%, that's definitely something. But without legal counsel, I can't say if we're able to do that or not. But it's a great idea.
That is a great idea. Yeah, and they got $10 billion in surplus, all the school systems, everything. So I'm going to give you the last word, Jonathan, and we'll see you again, Jennifer, in December. We will see you again.
Would love to.
Jonathan, go ahead. I'll give you the last question.
All right. So I have a background in finance. I've worked on Wall Street. I'm going to talk about briefly about how and where people get money from. When it comes to getting a relationship with somebody and getting compensated for that, it's much easier to hide and bury your fees and get paid lots of money than it is to be upfront and transparent about it. That's just universally true. And I see it all over finance, the world of finance, Wall Street, globalist banks, etc. And that holds true in this property tax equation as well. When you talk about what it actually takes to fund something, if you go out to the community and say, hey, community, we want to fund police, fire, EMS, schools, etc., and here's what it's going to cost. It's a much more difficult conversation than the federal taking of billions and trillions of dollars and then a little bit of it coming back and making it in a way that people can't easily track and follow. But some of us can do a pretty darn good job of illustrating the impact of that. Joe brought up Brunswick schools. When he did, I pulled up Brunswick schools reports. $114 million, $114,166,638. That's what Brunswick spends. Their per pupil cost is just under $20,000. Remember, that's only one balance sheet. The other balance sheet makes it more like probably $23,000 per pupil. For that, they're reporting an actually surprising, slightly positive 74% proficiency. Now remember, Ohio's proficiency standards are actually weakened and softer than they used to be. So that's not great, but at least it's better than places like Euclid. But the point is, when it comes to how we fund things, and what ultimately I believe the Axe Ohio tax and all that stuff is pushing us toward, and Doge and things like it, is how do we find efficiency? And when we get there, how do we determine what is a realistic price to spend for the thing that we're getting? Because we, the people, should be demanding that we actually know what we're paying. $115 million for one Ohio school district? That's Brunswick. What in the world are they doing? Do they have gold-plated portaloos what is happening in Brunswick that they need $115 million a year? That's
it's
craziness
crazy.
to me.
And Cleveland Heights is about 125 million, and that's just operating expenses. So,
That's bad craziness.
Hey, let me read this real quick. Village Councilman-elect here. You guys are well-spoken and informed, and I love listening to your conversation, but you're broadcasting on Sunday evening with the NFL. I know.
What? You mean listening to us is not more important than the Bengals versus, I think, what are they playing, New England? I almost wore my Bengals shirt, but I do
the
have
NFL.
orange and black.
I know. The NFL. You're not going to be able to outdo the NFL. Okay,
Joe. That's why I say most of Americans, their biggest problem is their favorite team is down by 10 at halftime. That's all most of them.
And that's why all the levies keep getting passed over and over.
Yeah.
All right, Jennifer.
How about those Browns?
Browns and Cincinnati. Because you're a big Cincinnati fan. You're down in Dayton. I want to thank you.
Right.
Thank you again
Thank
for
you,
coming
Jennifer.
on. Really appreciate it. Let's
Thanks,
see your
you
mug.
guys.
Thank
Let
you,
me
Rip
see your
Gross.
mug shot one more
Oh,
time.
mug shot.
Look at that. We
There
love
we
it.
go.
There we go.
Hey, thanks
There we
again.
go. Thanks,
And-
you guys. I love my mug. My husband's not so much.
Thank you very much. We'll see you next month. Next
All
month.
right,
We'll
guys.
do it
Thank
again
you
next
so
month.
much.
We'll do it again
All
next
right.
month. I got to bring in our next guest here tonight,
We'll flip that camera.
Jason.
It's going upside down. What's going on?
Oh, can you turn it
Uh-oh.
sideways or will it work or not?
Oh,
Well, he
let's try
did,
it.
but it's not rotating.
Oh,
Is it better? I know, I'm still upside down. That's crazy. I mean, that's the only way we can do it.
Jason Barnhart, you are located in, I want to say near Lima, Ohio. Am I wrong?
You're a bit wrong. It's Troy, Ohio.
Troy, that's right, Troy. So, how are you tonight? And it's good to say we wanted to get some younger generation Z people on and hear your thoughts and everything about politics and the conservative movement and all that. You're a big Trump fanatic, right? You're a big MAGA guy, right?
Well, I want to say I'm a big MAGA guy, but I'm an American First guy, and that's not Nick Fuentes. I feel like America has drawn far away from America First. And before any political party alignment, I'm an American First, and that's the biggest thing. So, yeah, I voted for Donald Trump. I'm a supporter, but I love this country first.
All right, a couple of things you wanted to talk about tonight. I think you wanted to talk about some local races. You're going to have to fill us in on what those are specifically. And then we'll talk about some of the statewide races, okay?
Absolutely. So, and Troy is located in the 80th district, so that's Jonathan Newman's seat. We have that election coming up in 2026. We also have the Senate race between Rodney Creech and Phil Plummer. So, I mean, it's pretty exciting over in Troy right now. We have John Husted versus Sherrod Brown, and then we have Vivek versus Dr. Amy Acton. I call her Dr. Lockdown. But, Ohio is very, very exciting during this period, so I'm excited for it.
And what are those are the local races then that you
Yeah, so those
with?
those are the local races compared to our state. Well, I guess they're statewide because they're state rep and state senate.
What's your thoughts on if we move to let's say the governor race with Vivek and Amy Acton, and I guess Tim Ryan decided he's not going to run. He decided to jump out. So it's just going to be Vivek and Amy Acton. So from your perspective again with this whole Generation Z, do you guys follow it? People your age, how old are you? You're like 20, all right?
I'm 19.
Okay, you're 19.
Close, but
close.
Yeah, 19.
Okay, so
so
people your
we're
age, are they
feeling-
following politics that much? What's the thought on that?
Yeah,
Your
I think
age
so.
group.
I think my generation's following politics really closely. They won't admit it per se, but I think my generation's following closely. A lot of people that I talk to on like the conservative side, they're not fans of Vivek so forth, I guess, because it feels like everything that he says, and this is what I get from people. Everything that he says, I feel like it's Donald Trump's face instead of Vivek Ramaswamy's face. It feels like he's taking that MAGA movement and just making it the Ohio movement. And they say that he's not original because it feels like he's just reading into Donald Trump's playbook. And that's my generation. That's a lot of people in Troy and Piqua area. So I think the polls right now, I don't think that's really real. If it's 46 to 45, Amy Acton up, there's no way that that's true.
No, I was saying the same thing too. That is so. But you know what? It was a very left-leaning pollster. It was It was Bowling Green State University, and there's been a few other. There was a teachers union that put out a poll that marvelously had it like tied. But these are not reputable polls. You can't believe them, and I wouldn't put any stock in it. She is her fundraising is pretty weak.
I have never believed in poll numbers in my entire life. I think poll numbers are the biggest liar that you'll ever see. Even if it's so close to the election, don't ever believe the polls. Believe in your gut. And if you think that Vivek has if you have support for Vivek, then you should go out, vote with your conscience and vote with your heart. Make sure you do the research because a lot of people don't do research anymore, and it's kind of crazy. So, it's kicking off.
It's very crazy. Let me say something else because adults do not do any research either when it comes to voting and stuff like that, and they don't look anything up. But you're saying that, in your opinion, Vivek seems shallow. Is that what you're saying, or how would you clarify what you were saying?
Yeah, so that's people's opinions when I talk to them. My opinion is I think I know who I'm going to vote for in Ohio. I think that he should be more clear when he's taking questions instead of I'll look into it. I think that's what Vivek says right now. I'll look into it. And no politician's going to have all the answers. They're going to have more problems than solutions. But right now, I think Vivek he's visiting all 88 counties. The man is on a roll. I haven't seen Amy Acton in Miami County, so we're gonna keep pushing it. And here's another thing, Joe. If those polls were for real, the Democratic Party in Ohio would be backing Amy Acton, and nationwide, the Democratic Party would be polling and would be getting out door knocking for Amy Acton, but they're not. They're being very quiet about it, and that's why you can't believe the polls because Amy Acton is apparently 46%, and still Democrats are not backing her. So that's another thing that people need to look at.
Well, that's a very good point there. I also want Kent, are we having any tech problems that you're aware of? Because I got the orange light popping up on the stream.
That would be on your...
We did not lose it. We've got it. But I want to just clarify one point that you said, and then we'll go around the horn here. If Amy Acton was ahead or even close, the whole Democratic Party would be getting behind her like you would not believe. And that's why, again, it's phony, just as you mentioned right there. It is phony. I don't know of any current lawmakers that are really getting on the bandwagon yet. They wanted Tim Ryan. The problem with getting Tim Ryan into the whole mix was that they felt it was going to be discriminating against females. I mean, they really thought that this would look bad for females because we've never had a female governor. And the second thing was that you get into a messy primary where the two, Acton wasn't going to back down, so it'd be a fight back and forth. Eventually, Tim Ryan and Allison Russo would prevail, but a lot of damage and money would have been spent, and that would have been a problem for them. So we got ourselves a Generation Z on our show.
I just want to say congratulations to our guests, 19-year-olds to be so up on politics the way you are. I just say congratulations to your mother and father. You've done a great job.
I'll tell them thank you.
As far as Vivek Ramaswamy, I'm not supporting him. He does not support the property tax amendment. The Libertarian candidate Heather Hill does. Whether she's got any chance at all, I don't know. But that's we're supporting those candidates that will support the abolishment of the property taxes. As far as Amy Acton is concerned, I could not support her in any way, shape, or form because of her performance during the COVID. But Vivek has not. He's more for the elimination of the income tax, which really will help his donor base. That's why he's doing that.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we got a question here. Let me just at you, and then I'll go to Jonathan. It says, what would you say is the main source of news and information for young people? That's a great question. Where are you getting your news and information?
Well, I get it from all sorts of sites. So I'm not a guy that just follows Fox News all the time. I do look at that, but I also follow NBC, not MS Now, or whatever the heck they're going on. But I do follow not MS. I do follow NBC also. I try to read all sorts of sites, and I really can't tell you what everybody else is following, but I feel like they're more on TikTok, and they'll get their information on TikTok. But Brian, I do have a question for you really fast. A few weeks ago, you said something that Rodney Creech was a socialist because he wasn't supporting the property tax.
Oh, yeah.
I forget.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, can you elaborate why Rodney Creech?
Yeah, what happened was I sent a survey to all senators and to the representatives, and I asked them, would you support the abolishment? Would you sign our petition to abolish property taxes? I did give Rodney Creech credit. At least he had the backbone to answer the email, and he said no, he would not support that. And I always go back to where school funding is 2/3 of our property taxes. And I have Representative Dan Troy on the record, on video, saying that public school funding in Ohio is the purest form of socialism. So anybody that's supporting the current funding of the public schools, in my opinion, is a socialist. They do not believe in freedom and liberty, and I'm just calling them out as I see it.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Well,
Gotcha.
I can respect you for that. I can tell you.
Now you're a big. You were just talking about Rodney Creech, that you're supporting his run for state rep and everything. So I got you.
Yeah. Who's he running against?
He's running against Phil Plummer out of Montgomery County.
Phil Plummer?
Rodney Creech is a dear friend of mine. I personally don't think he's a socialist. I think if you search up capitalist, I think his picture should be there. I mean, he started his own business. He made it successful. He's a 4th-generation farmer. I mean, the guy loves America, and the guy loves Ohio. If he didn't love those two things, I don't think he would be in the state house. But we live in the greatest country in the world.
I appreciate that. I'll reach out to Mr. Plummer if I can, and to get his approach and see what he thinks about our petition, and would he sign our petition. And if he will, I will let everybody know. If he doesn't, I will call him a socialist too.
All right.
All right. So an important note of clarification for our audience: what Brian is asking of these people is simply their willingness to put something on the ballot and then let Ohioans vote on it. And anybody who takes the stance that we, the people, shouldn't be afforded the opportunity to vote on an issue, that, to me, I take umbrage with that. I have a major issue with that, especially that stance from an elected representative. I don't have any direct awareness of whatever it is that Creech, Representative Creech, responded with. I haven't actually seen the questionnaire in question, and that's really just lack of it's communication between Brian and myself, and that's fine. I didn't ask for a copy of that, but I do feel it's important enough for me to step in and clarify at least my position on this thing. Any issue, if it's important to the people of Ohio, should make it on the ballot, because that's a major stepping stone toward we, the people, feeling like we have a voice in government again. Right now, it's fairly universal that people don't feel that they have a representative voice in government. They're fed up and frustrated with a lot of our supposed representatives who we elect into office, and then they seem to sort of turn into these little mice These people unwilling to go out there and fight for the interests of we the people. For that reason, this ballot initiative to take to eliminate property taxes is very important to us. And that this dismissive concept of like, well, no, I don't think it should be on the ballot. Anybody that has that is a major problem in my book. That's all I wanted to say on that. Two more things. The first is don't trust any of these polls. A while ago, when I saw that preposterous poll that showed up with ridiculous Amy Acton that nobody likes ahead of Vivek Ramaswamy, I did something that I think everybody should be paying attention to. And not that everything's a popularity contest, but these days elections kind of are. I pulled up a couple social media sites and I see that Amy Acton on one has 27,000 followers. On the same site, Vivek Ramaswamy has just under 700,000. On a separate social media site, I see that Amy Acton has 13,500 followers to Vivek Ramaswamy's 3.6 million followers. So nobody's really paying attention to Amy Acton. People are paying attention to Vivek Ramaswamy. That having been said, there is a key point that our guest made, and that goes to voter turnout. It's very possible that the left can be agitated into voting because they think that Amy Acton represents some sort of grand new freedom for them or whatever. We've seen it before, or like this sort of moral imperative. We must have a female governor, and they'll set everything else aside and they will go into a frenzy of voting in order to achieve that thing because it feels morally virtuous or something. We saw it in the conversations when Hillary Clinton lost, and we saw it in the placement of a recent Supreme Court justice who was selected according to Joe Biden because she was a black female. Those aren't qualifications. If we on the conservative, on the right side, the America First, those of us who actually care about meritocracy and skill and capability, if we care, we will find representatives and people for office who actually give a darn, and then we have to get out into the streets and go door to door and use social media, use our spheres of influence to get our people out to the polls and voting. For heaven's sakes, we just got hammered in the last elections because that exact thing happened. The left were driven in massive droves to the voting booth, and our side, I don't know what we were doing, sleeping and watching the ball game or something because we didn't vote. Voter turnout is the key, but if these social media numbers are any indication, I don't think Amy Acton is within a mile of Vivek Ramaswamy at this point.
Yeah, no, well, definitely not. Now,
Joe, can I ask our guest a question?
You can in just a second. In just a second, you can ask a question. I got to bring on another guest here. Yakov, I think, is out there. Yakov, are you out there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Let me bring you on too, because you're another Generation Z. So I'm just going to bring you on here and show everybody. There you are. Good to see you.
How's it going?
All right. We're going to get with you in just a second. Brian, what's your question? And Jason, stay on as well. We'll have both of you. We're going to dueling Generation Zs here.
Yeah, I've read that the first-time homebuyers, the age for first-time homebuyers have gone from 30 up to 40 years of age. And then Donald Trump proposes that we now have 50-year mortgages. So I'm just wondering, what is the American dream for our generation under 25? Do they have an American dream anymore?
They have an American. Yeah, do they have an American? Hey, let me throw this to Yakov real quick. Jason, I'll come right back to you, okay? Yakov, what do you think? How you doing? It's good to see. Now, you are an Orthodox Jewish 23-year-old from Cleveland Heights, and it's good to see you. And you're also very conservative, and so we'll get to all your Generation Z stuff. But what do you think about a 50-year mortgage for someone for the just in general? What do you think of 50-year mortgage?
I think it's being marketed in a way that's they're trying to push it like it's something that will help increase housing affordability, but it's really just serving as yet another. It's pretty dystopian. People are going to be buying houses and not actually owning them until they're, especially if they're my age, not going to be owning them until they're already retired. I don't really see. You asked if the American dream is still alive. I think that we have to keep dreaming if this is what we're being presented with. Now, of course, it's just an option. You can always get a 30-year mortgage, but I think it's kind of an alarm that this is even necessary, that people would even consider such a drastic option
it's crazy.
to opt to never own their home.
Yeah, that's absolutely crazy. Jason, what do you think? If you're in your 30s, you'll be in your 80s when you finally pay your house off. If you live that long.
Yeah. Well, if God's willing, God's willing. But I mean, it is crazy. But I feel like the American dream is still alive. We still have people crossing our border legally now. ICE is taking care of all that. People want to come to America to have the American dream, and I do think the American dream is still alive. But yeah, the 50-year mortgage plan, wow. Like I said, if God's willing to have me be in my 80s when I'm still alive, then I'll still be around and hopefully have my house then.
Yeah, the problem with a 50-year mortgage, though, is it's just all you're doing is renting, really, more so than anything else. It's just one long rental. Hey, let me ask you a question here. Let's talk a little bit about the Sherrod Brown, John Husted. Any thoughts on that race?
I mean, there's a lot of thoughts. Talking with people, they don't think that why Sherrod Brown even back in here? What hasn't he accomplished, so-called? What didn't he accomplish in his 30-plus years as the U.S. Senator that he's now going to accomplish now? I mean, he's rolling out the carpet with his wrinkled old shirt, his messed up hair. I mean, at least I have the respect to do my hair and, put a little clothes on. But the man comes out and he looks lazy. I mean, the man looks sick. John Husted, I don't think a lot of people, and this is my perspective, I don't think a lot of people are going to be supporting him because he was in the administration that supported Amy Acton as the health director, and she locked down the state. She advised the governor to lock down the state, so he had a part in that. So I don't think that they're going to support either of them. I think this is a Senate race.
Yeah, I think I'm losing your connection a little bit, Jason. Let me go over to Yakov for a minute. Yakov, I really wanted to talk to you tonight because you're an Orthodox Jewish person, and the whole idea with that was nope. Wait a second. Okay. The whole idea was I wanted to get an idea from a Generation Z perspective of where you stand with the whole conservative movement and stuff, and with Trump. So people your age and with your community and all that, they're pretty conservative, right?
Yeah. I'm still hearing plenty of chatter, and it's pretty
Joe,
shocking.
Can we mute his audio
until
we get him back?
Yeah, I'll figure it out here. Hang on, Jason. Hang on. Okay, go ahead, Yakov.
Hey, yeah. So it's not really a generational issue for Jews per se. Pretty much all Orthodox Jews are overwhelmingly conservative. You can look at polls for the 2024 election. Jews as an overall voting bloc are liberal, but the conservative, the Orthodox Jewish population is, I believe, 80 to 90% conservative, if my memory is correct, which is more so than almost any other group in America. I mean, maybe the Amish, I don't know, are similar. But
now, when we talk about New York, let's talk about New York for a minute. And I think you had an interesting take on the new mayor.
Yeah.
for New York, and also there's a huge Jewish population in New York, but they're not really Orthodox, are they?
Well, I don't know the exact percentage of the New York Jewish population that's Orthodox. I would assume it follows the national trend of approximately 10 to 15% of the Jewish population there. So there are approximately 1 million Jewish New Yorkers. So that would put the Orthodox Jewish population at 100 to 150,000. It's the largest Jewish population in a city outside of Israel. It's incredibly massive Jewish community, the largest on the continent.
But
Now,
they're not very conservative, are they? In general, is that why
no,
Mamdani got elected, or what's your thoughts on that?
yeah. So I don't know how Orthodox Jews voted, but I know that the Jewish population as a whole did not vote for Mamdani. They were highly concerned about his about allegations of anti-Semitism on his part. The big story around him was that he refused to condemn the phrase "globalize the Intifada." Which we can go more on that, but right now, just general. I just want to paint a general picture. Because there was a general consensus among the Jewish community that Zoran was, if not anti-Semitic, at least very iffy. The majority of the Jewish population voted for Cuomo. Some voted for Sliwa. Very few voted for Mamdani. And this is talking about Jews in general, not the Orthodox Jews, which Jews in general are a pretty liberal bloc.
Yeah, that's the thing too. I'm gonna, Brian. Do you have a question? Let's maybe do a question towards Yakov if you have one. I brought him on because I found it interesting that the Jewish population, especially the Orthodox, or primarily the Orthodox Jewish population, very conservative, very Trump friendly, very MAGA, and
I just wonder if the under 25 generation, do they ever think about socialism or communism? Because I'm starting to wonder if our 250-year experiment with this country is over, if we're electing a communist to run the largest, city in the country, or one of the largest anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you're asking about Orthodox Jews, we're not communists at all. If you're asking about Jews in general, there are a lot of liberal college kids who are Jewish. I don't know the exact numbers on what percentages of them are communist, socialist, whatever, as opposed to normal people. I would assume that secular Jews are probably more or less in line with the American public. That being a worrying number of Generation Z being communist. Do I think that the American experiment is over? I generally try to remain optimistic because this is the only country that this is my home. I really, if it fell apart, it would be devastating to countless, like almost everybody I know. Hundreds of millions of people would be. It's just unthinkable. Now, will New York City fall apart? I don't think so. I think that Trump has Mamdani more or less on a leash. I don't think that Mamdani can do anything. That's maybe me being a little bit. We can get more into that later.
Tell us about that real quick. Tell us about that.
Yeah.
Because somebody's actually asking that in the chat. So your thoughts on President Trump and Mamdani meeting, well, what do you think?
So I have a theory that, most people aren't so political. You'll have a lot of folks on the left and the right that really care about politics and it's their whole personality. But most normal people just want cheaper groceries, cheaper gas, more affordable cost of living. And unfortunately, in this country, it's becoming harder and harder and harder to afford these things. So you have a very large voting bloc of Americans who are they are completely
You're talking about New York.
Yeah. No,
the rent is so high in New York, right? The rent.
It's everywhere. It's not just New York, although New York is especially bad. But you have a bunch of people who are or like they're completely like they're completely disinterested in politics. They just want things to be cheaper, and they're willing to do almost anything. They're willing to vote for they're willing to vote for communism if it means that America is going to become affordable. They're willing to vote for MAGA if it means America is going to become affordable. There was a clip I saw of Zoran Mamdani walking down the street. This was like I think while he was running, he was walking down up and down the streets of New York, interviewing people, asking them, who did you vote for? And if the person said they voted for Trump, then he followed up with the question, why? And most of the people answered, because it's just unaffordable. Cost of living is too expensive. I understand that Mamdani could have edited that footage and only kept certain clips to paint a narrative. But my general point is that he's clearly found a large voting base of disaffected Trump voters, or disaffected voters in general, who voted for Trump because they thought things would be cheaper. First year in, nothing's cheaper. They're angry, and this is how they show us that they're willing to do anything to get cheaper groceries and cheaper cost of living. They simply either they don't believe he's a communist, or they do and they don't care. They're that desperate.
I guess it really doesn't
ask
matter.
another.
It doesn't matter too
another.
much. Yeah, go ahead.
Another question, Joe, if I may. Is the Jewish community concerned in any way, shape, or form about the number of Muslims that are coming into our country? I've always felt that if you want to see what's happening in the United States, you just look at Europe, because it's foreshadowing what's going to happen here, and you start to see that, throughout the country, and you see it in New York, you see it in Dearborn. I now understand Texas. They're starting the Muslim community and Islam is starting to take over. Does that concern the Jewish community?
Absolutely. I mean, I can't speak on behalf of everybody, but most of the people that I talk to about this are very concerned that that the growing Muslim community is hostile. They do not have our American values in mind. They do not want to coexist with us. They want to impose their values on everybody else. And seeing what's happening in Europe, there have been record numbers of people making aliyah, immigrating from France or England to the state of Israel. If things progress here like they are in Europe, things could get very bad. I'm very concerned about it. I think it's one of the number one issues, and the only shred of hope I have is that we're ahead of the ball on this. We see what's happening in Europe, and the American electorate is hopefully not going to let it happen here, because we already have examples in living memory of what happens when you let in millions or even like 10 million Muslim immigrants.
All right, hang
Thank
on
you
one
for
second.
that.
I think I think Jason Barnhart may have left. Jason, I think are you still with us? I didn't mean to get rid of you. I didn't mean to get rid of you, but if you want to come back and join the conversation, please. I thought we would just bring on two Generation Zers tonight instead of one, and just go back and forth on some of it. So we do have Yakov with us here tonight as well, and let's just follow in on that for a minute, on the whole Muslim situation, because I think people don't understand this. When Israel is surrounded, the entire country is totally surrounded by Muslims, Arabs, right?
Yeah. Even within the Israeli population, about 21% are Muslim Arabs. And when you look at every surrounding country, Lebanon is, I believe, plurality or maybe slight majority Muslim, like 50-55% Muslim, which is the least. Jordan and Egypt and Saudi Arabia, yeah, they're all completely Islamic countries with Sharia law enforced on their populations. And ultimately, that's what the pro-Palestine movement, not every single branch of it, but the ones that actually have fighting power, that's what they want to impose on Israel. They want to take it over, make it Palestine, and impose Sharia law.
Yeah, because you're surrounded by the Arabs and the Muslims and everything, and if anybody knows about those problems, it's got to be Israel. But Jason, I didn't mean to tell you to leave or anything like that. We're just going to go back.
No,
and
it kept
forth
kicking me off. No, you're good. It kept kicking me off, so that was the problem. It was I don't know what's going on my side, but it kept kicking me off.
Let me ask you a quick question. So, in this day and age, with the price of college, the price of trying to buy a home, the cost of living, rent, everything like that, what is the thoughts of Generation Z right now and all that?
I mean, I can't speak for all of us, but for my thought, the world's an evil place, and the only thing that I can do today that'll make my life a whole lot better is seeking God, getting into Scripture, and that's the thing that I focus on. That's number one in my life. So that's for me, seeking God first, and He will guide me in a direction, and it'll be successful. So that's what I do. That's what a lot of my friends do. Seek God first, and hopefully, I mean, He'll pay the path for you, and that's the biggest thing for me. We were talking about a lot of Muslims and all that stuff. I don't mean to go off script or anything. I mean, there's no script, but I mean, we talk about all the issues that are affecting our country today. I mean, when you look at the world today, I mean, Christians are being persecuted in Nigeria. Christians are being persecuted all over, just by proclaiming the name of Jesus Christ as their Lord and Savior. They're being killed every day for it. And I mean, it's sickening and disgusting to see that a lot of most news networks will not cover it. And it's kind of disgraceful. We have over 50 million people trapped in human trafficking every single day. We don't talk about it. And I mean, it's kind of disgraceful to see that big time news networks will not cover these things. And it's kind of disgraceful to see in this nation.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, we got two heavy hitters there. They're both fantastic.
Yep.
Both fantastic. Yeah.
Glad to have you both on the show. Thank you for joining us.
Absolutely.
The first thing is empty promises. They win elections. To unsuspecting victims, you can promise all kinds of things, like free subway passes everyone rides the subway for free, as if MTA doesn't have a massive budget and it doesn't cost just vast amounts of money to run the MTA in New York. All this stuff, all this talk about grocery stores being run by government, etc., those are things that, unfortunately, unaware and unsuspecting victims will vote for. And it's happened many, many times before. Margaret Thatcher had a great expression about socialism. The former British Prime Minister said, "Socialism is great until you run out of other people's money." That's happening, and it's happening faster than we should feel comfortable about in the United States and in places like New York. My heart breaks for New York. I love the city, but I do like to counterbalance with good news when we can. Off radar for most, while Mandani was unfortunately elected to run New York, and I do hope that he is constrained both by the already awful, but not as awful, governor of the state of New York and by Trump. At the same time, elections were taking place that elected the very first Orthodox Jewish woman to a suburb of Cleveland. I believe it's University Heights. I don't remember her name. But that actually, I think, is awesome. I have had opportunity while I lived in Beechwood as a Christian to get to know exactly what Yaakov is describing. And I would just say from the outside perspective, it's now having spent a lot of time living in a primarily Jewish community, that what he's describing was my experience as well. You had from progressive Jews who lean very liberal to Orthodox Jews who, in my experience, align pretty much perfectly with my belief system, very conservative, very pro-America. So I immediately am dismissive of all that, the Jewish bloc, because there are a lot of different belief systems within Judaism. And you find the same thing in Christianity too. So I wanted to make that comment, but also when it comes to understanding the threat of the Islamification of America, I suggest everybody look up and become familiar with the Clarion Project. That is another Jewish conservative named Richard Green. He's been a friend of mine for a long time. The Clarion Project has been tracking and calling out and working in the intel, closely adjacent to the American intelligence agencies, in tracking Islamic groups within the United States and figuring out who the bad actors are. I remember as far back as probably 2017 going to a presentation that Richard did for Clarion Project. You can find Clarion Project online. And for me at least, for those and a number of other reasons, I tend to follow very closely conservative Jewish organizations because, as far as I can tell, and I get so frustrated with a lot of this stuff from like Tucker Carlson and everything, as far as I can tell, everything that they're fighting for in these conservative Jewish organizations is all the same stuff I'm fighting for. Figure out and uncover the Islamification, to call out the bad actors who are funding those pro-Palestinian marches and movements, and the people chanting from the river to the sea on college campuses, which, by the way, in case anybody's left out there that doesn't know, that's calling for genocide. That's calling for the extermination of Jews. Nobody should be okay with any of that sort of comment in any public arena, much less any publicly paid for college institution. I'm furious, and more people should be. The last piece. I made myself some notes here so I wouldn't forget things. And Yaakov is exactly right. Look what's happening in Europe. I lived briefly in Germany as an exchange student, and part of my heart is still there. I started paying close attention to Germany, and then France and Paris in particular, and parts of Europe, and then the 8 cities within the UK that are now Muslim run. Muslims have been elected, and as a result, you do see these major areas that are no-go zones for people who are not Muslim, that have Sharia law. And as a last piece of the puzzle, to raise the alarm bell and get people aware of what's happening in Europe, looking at all those countries, look up the number one name of boys, male children born in major parts of Europe right now. It's Muhammad. Muhammad is the number one name in something like 31 different major cities throughout Europe right now. So the things that have really degraded and led to major issues within certain Muslim communities, it's not all. Now, I'm not one of those. I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon and say that every Muslim nation or every Muslim community is bad, but there's a spreading bad element. And the last thing I'm going to say on that, go back. There was a video that was released by a politician from the United Arab Emirates projecting, it was like from 2016. He was saying, I predict that the next big wave of Islamic extremist terrorists are going to come out of Europe. No longer Arab nations and the Middle East, because the extremists have found fertile ground in the welcoming West, and places like United Arab Emirates and Saudi Arabia, who actually crack down on it and don't allow it, are ending up better off even than the United States. We're losing our freedoms, we're losing our liberties, and we run the risk right now in places like Minnesota, and parts of Texas and New Jersey of these pockets of Sharia law and Muslim extremism taking over. We should be more aware and fight back. Go find Clarion Project online and follow them.
All right, very good. Well, what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to throw a question at each of you and wrap it up for tonight, but it's going to be the same question, and it's a very basic question, but it's one that I'm interested in, Jason. So, it's a basic question of why did Generation Z vote for Trump's? Why did they go so heavily for Trump? And they abandoning the Democratic Party. So, what would be your answer to that?
I think the 4 years under the Biden administration, I think they pushed too much DEI, and they pushed for no border. They pushed for insanity. They said that men can become women, and then the same people that said that they were feminist, they supported females that had XY chromosomes. For those who don't know, basic gender studies, a male has an XY chromosome and a woman has an XX chromosome, and they abandoned the XX chromosome people, and then they started supporting the XY people. So it was insanity that pushed us, and we were done with it. We knew the truth that we knew the most important truth, that God sent his only son to this planet to die for our sins, to pay our ransom with his own blood. We knew the truth that a country without borders is no country at all. And we knew that millions of babies were being slaughtered in the womb every single year, and the Democratic Party called it healthcare. We woke up in the right way. We didn't wake up in the wokeness. We woke up in the patriotic form. And that's why we voted for Trump in high numbers.
That's awesome. Well, thank you again for coming on, Jason. Really appreciate it. We have to have you on again.
Thank you
will
so
have you
much.
on again.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Nice job.
We'll definitely have you on. Yakov, thank you. And I'm just going to leave you with that same question, okay? So the Generation Z, they kind of abandoned the Democratic Party, and they kind of flock towards Trump and everything. What would be your reasoning for that?
So if you look at exit polls, it's actually a very gendered separation here. Generation Z women actually got more left wing. Meanwhile, Generation Z men shifted hard to the right, more than offsetting the Gen Z women. Now, I would, at least for men, I would say I could explain what would help push me to the right is the left's messaging on men, that you're toxic if you display masculine traits, if that you are that you're privileged and you have to pay for your privilege. You have to you have to make up for historical wrongs. The hard pushing for DEI has definitely not helped their messaging with young men who are hopeful to get jobs and enter professional fields in the workforce when they consider women first, because we have to solve the gender pay gap by accepting people based off of gender rather than purely qualifications. I would say that telling people that if you don't accept such and such sexuality, that you're a bigot, this, that. I think that all of this culture war stuff has heavily pushed men to the right. And that's among the political men. I would say that Gen Z is tired of, for example, being forced to accept that men can enter women's bathrooms, that men can compete in women's sports. And it's kind of unnerving that women aren't fighting for women's rights here, because this really is a women's rights issue, that women's spaces are being invaded by men who are pretending to be women. And the men on the conservative movement are the ones fighting for it's alien to me. But I would say primarily the culture war has pushed Gen Z men to the right. They're tired of the degeneracy. They're tired of all of the virtue signaling going on by the left, and they want to show the American, like the broader electorate, that they're not going to tolerate being trampled on like this.
Very good. That's excellent. Well, thank you again. You guys are great. Both of you are excellent. You got very articulate. You do a fantastic job. So there is
Fantastic,
hope. There is
really.
hope. So we really appreciate
Thanks,
it. Very
guys.
fantastic. Thanks again, guys, and have a good night. And
Thanks, Joe. Thanks,
talk to everybody
Jonathan. See
soon.
you.
Take care.
Thank you.
Take care. Have a good night.